Hey guys, welcome back to releasethecraftin. Priscilla here with another episode of Storycraft. And you guys, this one's cool. It's going to be really cool because this was sort of semi-requested. I just sort of stated I would do it by Cindy because she just did a book, a journal inspired by East of the Sun, West of the Moon. It was a really cool book. You guys should definitely check out her channel. So thank you, Cindy, for putting this into my brain. But also, we're like a couple of days away from starting the Art Witch August Challenge. So if you haven't seen that video already, check it out. It's the videos before this one, not directly before. No, there's been a video in between. But it's in my video catalog. Check that out because we're coming up with this cool challenge. And it's going to be really fun. And it starts in a couple of days. So you can grab your prompt list and join in. If you're watching this in the far future, go back and check out and see everything we made for Art Witch August. Because, yeah, that's cool. We did it. It happened. So there it is. It's going to be on a playlist. You can watch it there too. At any rate, let's jump into it. So we are doing East of the Sun, West of the Moon, which is a Norwegian fairy tale that Andrew Lang actually curated. I have it in the Blue Fairy book. So I'm pretty familiar with this story, although I did not take any refreshers before I started recording, so this is going to be interesting. But also, it's very similar to other stories that I have told, and I'll talk about that at the end, because I don't want to spoil it if you haven't heard those stories already. We're gonna breeze through some of the things you may have heard once or twice on this channel before, because sometimes fairy tales get a little repetitive. But at any rate, our story takes place in the way long ago, and it starts with a man who is very, very poor, and for some reason has a bucket load of children with his wife, of course. They have a ton of children of all ages, and they are living in the poorest, most desolate of conditions. They're very struggling, you know, it's hard for them to get by, and they're living their life as normal, trying to be happy where they can, you know, find some happiness here and there. And it turns out one night, one cold, wintry night, there is a knock at the door. So the dad, who is not named, nobody has names in this story, goes to the door to see who's knocking, and what he sees outside the door, you guys, is a bear. A giant polar bear is knocking at his door, and he's like, "Oh, good day, sir." Bear, how can I help you? And the bear is like, "Hey, are you tired of being broke?" And the man's like, "Yeah, I actually really am tired. I would really enjoy it if I had money and could provide for my children easily and, you know, we could live comfortably." And the bear's like, "Great, I have a proposition for you. Just give me your eldest daughter and I will give you guys gold, riches, jewels beyond your wildest imaginings. More than you will ever need in your lifetime or your children's lifetimes. I will make you guys so freaking rich. All you gotta do is give me your daughter." And our man, our father here, listens to this. He's very intrigued by the offer, but because he's a real one, kind of, he goes and he asks his daughter. He decides to get her consent. So he's like, "Hey, there's a polar bear outside that would like to take you with him in exchange for money. Can I sell you to the polar bear for lots of gold and jewels?" And the daughter's like, "No, I actually wouldn't like that. I don't want to go with the polar bear." And the dad's like, "Okay, alright, yeah, totally understandable. Yeah, no problem." So he goes back to the door and he tells the bear, like, "Hey, she said no, but come back on Thursday and I'll convince her to change her mind." So the bear's like, "No problem. I'm a bear. I understand how the human calendar system works and will return next Thursday." So the week goes by, and somehow I say, although I think we all know the answer, the father convinces his daughter to let herself be sold off to this bear so that the family can get great wealth in exchange for the rest of her life. And I'm pretty sure he strong-armed her into doing so, because there's no way. Either that or he set the entire household of children on her to convince her to change her mind. But she does, so she decides to consent and go. And she doesn't have anything to pack because she doesn't have anything. That's how poor they are. So when the bear comes back on Thursday, the dad's like, "Here's my daughter. She's ready to go." And she just jumps onto the bear's back. And she's in her little threadbare dress. She doesn't have the proper shoes for winter. They're very, very poor. And the bear's like, "Cool, I'm going to take your daughter, and in the morning, you will be greeted by all the wealth and all the things I promise you, because you didn't ask for cash up front." And the bear takes off. So while they're traveling for a bit, the girl's like, okay, all right, this isn't the worst thing that could possibly happen. The bear's not immediately eating me, so I think maybe things will be okay and not totally weird. So she starts talking to the bear, because, you know, what else are you going to do? It's cold, it's winter, you're riding on the back of a polar bear after your family sells you away into indentured servitude for as far as you know. And she starts chatting to the bear. They start having a very amicable conversation, and the bear's like, oh, I'm just taking you to my castle. You're going to live there with me. You don't have to do anything. You're never going to want for anything again. In fact, you don't even have to work. You're just going to come live with me at my castle, and it's going to be really pleasant. You're going to keep me company. And she's like, oh, you have a castle, bear? And he's like, yeah, totally. I'm a bear. I have a castle. So he takes her back to his castle. It is, in fact, luxurious. And it's full of servants, but not regular servants, guys. Invisible servants who do tend to her every need. And the bear tells her, like, hey, you don't have to worry about anything. If there's something you want, snap your fingers and tell the room what you want, and it'll appear. That's how cool this castle is. So she's like, whoa, okay. So her life starts to change around, right? Like, she gets some new clothes, she gets proper shoes, she's having a good time. There's only one thing, guys. There's only one caveat to this, like, ideal lifestyle, is that every night when she goes to bed, you know, she shuts all the lights off, she gets all cozy under the covers, a man crawls into the bed next to her. And now, it's not strictly implied in the story what happens when they're in the bed together, but yeah, I think, you know, fill in the gap there. But the first night, she's like, whoa, what is this? And he's like, hey, chill out. I'm a guy. I'm here to sleep in the bed. Relax. This is going to keep happening. So she's like, okay, cool. Yeah, this isn't weird. And he's like, yeah, hey, don't worry, though. I'm actually the bear, in case you were wondering. In daytime, I'm a bear. Nighttime, I'm a guy. You can't look at me, though, so just go to bed. And she's like, oh, okay, so it's Lady Hawk rules. All right. So she goes to bed, and she continues to repeat her day. So meanwhile, you know, she gets to enjoy the luxuries of the castle. She's having a grand old time. There's just a strange man crawling into her bed at night. And, you know, maybe stuff is happening. Maybe it's not. Depends on how sexy you want the story to be. And time goes on and everything seems great. Except that she starts to get a little bit mopey. Because when you have everything, turns out you want for things. She just is really lonely, guys. She misses her family. She had a really big family. And now she's in this castle basically by herself. Because the bear's not hanging around all day keeping her company. He's off doing bear shit in the daytime. And he's only a guy at nighttime when he's like, hey, go to bed, or other things. And, you know, so she's bored, she's lonely, so she starts, like, moping about, and at, you know, their usual nighttime ritual, she starts, you know, sighing in the bed, and the bear's like, hey, the bear man is like, hey, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? Are you okay? And she's like, yeah, like, everything is perfect, honestly, like, I really can't complain, and I shouldn't complain, but I'm kind of lonely and sad here. I grew up with a big family, and there's no one else to talk to when you're not around. I kind of want to go home and see my family. So the bear's like, oh, is that all you wanted? Yeah, totally, we can do that. I have one condition for you. I'll tell you in the morning. So they set out, him as a bear, her as a girl, in her finery now, this time, riding, you know, across the countryside back to her home. And as they're going, the bear's like, hey, so this caveat, okay, it's really important that you listen to me. When you go home, you're going to be tempted to talk to your mom. And in fact, your mother is going to be tempted to talk to you. She's going to be really, really insistent that she talk to you. Here's the thing. You can't fucking talk to your mom, okay? Don't speak to her, because she's going to say stuff that's going to ruin all the things that we have going on. It's going to ruin our lives if you talk to your mom. Do you understand? And our girl is like, yeah, I totally get it. It's weird that you don't want me to talk to my mom after you basically bought me from my family and now are keeping me hostage in your castle and are invading my privacy by sneaking into my bed at night. But yeah, no, I understand. I should not talk to my mother. That's your one rule. You're a really cool guy for taking me home to visit my family, so I guess I won't complain about that either. So, she goes home. The bear drops her off. He's like, hey, remember what I said? And she's like, yeah, don't talk to my mom. Gotcha. And she goes into the house. Turns out the house is no longer the little ramshackle hut that she used to live in. It's a huge palace. That's how much money he gave her, like family, was a shit ton, because they have a huge, giant palatial mansion type house, and everybody's living large, everybody's dressed well, they're eating good, her whole family is super happy, but also they're super excited to see her, because they were all convinced she got eaten by a bear, which is the most logical conclusion, honestly. And so, she has a great time with her family. She's catching up. They have a big dinner party and everything like that. But she can see her mom making eyes at her like, hey, come over here and talk to me real quick. And she's like, oh, no, Mom. Like, I gotta talk to my 15th and 16th and 17th sibling. I don't have time to talk to you. And she tries to put off her mom for the entirety of the night. But you know how moms are, right, guys? So her mom corners her. And she's like, hey, you, me, kitchen, talk now. So she's like, okay, well, there ain't shit else I can do. I can't get out of this one. So she follows her mom to the kitchen, and she starts talking. In fact, she doesn't stop talking. She tells her mom every single thing that happened to her since she left the house, every single thing about the palace, every single thing about her new bear man who sleeps in her bed, who is kind of technically at this point her husband. So she's like, yeah, we've definitely been fucking. Because, like, how else do you interpret that? But also, it's the bear. So the mom's like, what? So first of all, he's a bear. Second of all, he's in your bed at night. And third of all, you don't know what he looks like? He could be a horrible, ugly, hideous troll. And she's like, well, I hadn't really considered that, Mom, but now that you brought it up, I guess you're kind of right? Her mom's like, yes, I am absolutely right, 100% right. How could I possibly be wrong? So her mom's like, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a little bit of a candle, a little tiny nubbin of a candle. You take that, you put it in your bra. You smuggle that back into the castle. And then, at night, when this creature crawls into your bed, you light that candle, you look at his face. If it's a monster, you run away, you come back home. And so she's like, okay, well, yeah, that's very reasonable, and now that you seeded this doubt and insecurity in my brain, I absolutely will follow through with this. So that's what happens. She goes home with the bear, says her goodbyes to her family, settles in for the night. They probably smash. And then she gets up and she lights her secret candle, her little bra candle, her little tiny nubbin of a candle, and she holds it over the face of her quote-unquote husband. And she looks down, and it is the most gorgeous man she has ever seen. This man is smoking hot. He's so attractive that she knows immediately he's not just a man bear, he's a prince. And she knows that now she's married to royalty. And she's like, oh my gosh, this man is so beautiful. And I am so in love with him. Now I'm in love because I've seen his face. And as we know, fairy tales tell us nothing except that beauty is definitely skin deep, and that's the only thing that we're valuing. So she's now in love with him. So in love that she has to give him a kiss. Which, like, no, you don't. You could wait. You could wake him up even. You don't have to do it while he's sleeping like a creeper, but she does. So she leans forward to give him a kiss, and guess what happens, guys? Her little nubbin of a candle, it starts to burn her finger as she's leaning, because it's a little nubbin of a candle. And as it burns her finger, she tips it over a little bit, and 3 drops of the tallow land on his shirt, and he jumps up. Her husband jumps up, and he's like, oh my god, you burned me. And she's like, I'm so sorry, I just really wanted to know what happened. He's like, you talk to your fucking mom. I told you this would happen, and now here we are, everything is ruined, game over, man. And she's like, what do you mean, nothing's ruined, like all I did was see your face. And he's like, no, you had to live with me for a year without seeing my face to break the bear curse on me. But turns out, because you couldn't hang, and you couldn't just avoid talking to your mother, I now have to go back to the castle of my ogre stepmom and marry her daughter, who is also an ogre, by the way, and you get left behind. You get nothing. You lose. So she's like, what? Hold on, wait a minute. Where's the castle? Maybe I can go talk to your stepmom. We can sort this out. Maybe I can try to find another way to break the curse on you. Like, I love you, and I want to make this work. Then he's like, yeah, I loved you too, but then look at the shit you did. It's fucking shenanigans, okay? So, yeah, you can, if you want to, come pursue me and try to break the curse and all that. I'm not going to stop you, because I still kind of want to be married to you if the option is you versus ogre, but I am really mad at you for not being able to follow follow simple directions. So all I'm going to tell you is that the castle is east of the sun and west of the moon. And she's like, what's that mean? And he's like, I don't fucking know. I don't even know how to get there. I'm under a curse. So she's like, oh, shit, okay. So should we start working on that now? And he's like, no, I'm going to bed because I'm also mad at you for burning me. And she's like, oh my god, I'm never going to hear the end of this. So the prince goes to the bed. She ends up just falling asleep too because she doesn't know what else to do. He's sleeping now. What's she going to do? Stand there and argue with him while he's asleep? No, she goes to sleep. And then she wakes up in the morning. And guess what, guys? Not only is she on the dirt floor, on the ground, she's bare-ass naked because all of the finery and all of the cool things that were in that castle, gone. Absolutely gone. All that's left is her naked butt on the dirty ground and her tattered, threadbare, rattered dress. That's all she has left. So she picks that up, she puts that on, and she's like, okay, I gotta get cooking. I gotta find the castle east of the sun and west of the moon. So she sets out, and for many, many days she walks. And walks. And walks. And guess what happens, guys? She runs into 3 wise old women, all independently, but we'll smoosh it together here because it's very repetitive. All of them are playing with some sort of golden object, an apple, a thread carder, and a spinning wheel. Spindle. Spinning item. There's some spinning happening in this story. And every time she meets one of these old women, she's like, hey, I'm looking for the castle that's east of the sun, west of the moon. Do you know where it is? And each one's like, no, I actually don't know where it is. But if you go and visit this other old lady, she'll tell you. She might know. So take this gold object with you and just go visit them. So every time she visits one of the old ladies, they're like, I don't know. Go to the other old lady, take this present. Hope, you find your prince. So, when she gets to the 3rd old lady, of course there's not another old lady after that, so that old lady's like, here's your gift, I don't actually know how to get there, but if you go to the North Wind, maybe they can help you. Like, go talk to the winds. So, what she ends up doing is going to search for the winds. She finds the South Wind first, and the South Wind is like, oh my gosh, I'm not strong enough to take you to that castle, it's kind of far, but I will take you to the North Wind, who is the star of the show, and he will take you there. He definitely knows how to get there, because he was the one who took your prince there. I saw that. And so she's like, okay, cool. So she goes with the South Wind until she finds the North Wind, and the North Wind's like, yeah, I'm actually a big crotchety asshole, and I don't really want to take you anywhere, but I guess since you're looking at me with your pouty face, and you keep telling me your entire life story, I will take you to the castle that's east of the sun, west of the moon, but I'm only going my speed. And because I'm the North Wind, I'm the biggest, baddest of all the winds, I'm going super fast, okay? And so she's like, yeah, totally, like, I'm down, I can handle that. And he's like, okay, but you gotta hold on really tight, because I'm not coming back for you if you fall off. And so our girl is like, yeah, no, I can do this. I'm determined. I have all these gold things in my pocket to weigh me down. I'm not flying off this wind whatsoever. So the wind scoops her up and takes her over the hill and yonder towards the castle that is east of the sun and west of the moon. And this wind goes so fast, you guys, that it doesn't just, like, cause a light breeze to stir the passerbys. No, this wind wrecks towns, sinks ships, absolutely causes havoc in its path, just leaves a wake of destruction in order to take the princess here, because the North Wind is an asshole. And I guess anything for love? Question mark? So, at any rate, the North Wind does eventually, after it's done wreaking mayhem on, the poor innocent people below, drop her off at the castle, right at the gate, and is like, here, fucking get off, there you go, I did my good deed, never come back to me again, and the North Wind fucks off. And so, the princess is there. Well, she's not technically a princess. She is kind of a princess. She's married to a prince. She's a princess now. Nobody has names. It's very hard. So the princess is there, and she's like, okay, I'm going to get my man back. How do I do that? Do I knock on the castle gate and then, like, try to negotiate? No. I sit in front, and I play with the golden apple I got from the first old lady. So that's what she does. She's tossing around the golden apple. She's having a good old time. The guards are kind of side-eyeing her, like, what's this weird girl doing out here? And then the ogre princess sees her from one of the windows, comes rushing out there, because the ogre princess loves gold things, guys. So when she sees this gold apple, she's like, I gotta have it. How much is it? I will buy it from you right now. And our princess is like, it's not for sale. Not for money, at least. because that would be basic. What I want is a knight with the prince that's sleeping in your castle. I want that guy. And the ogre princess is like, okay, alright. Weird request to ask for a night with my fiance, but sure. Yeah, totally. I will do that for you. So, when our lady goes in, she finally gets a night with her prince, and she's ready to, like, tell him, like, hey, I found you, like, how do I get you out of here, let's go. Turns out he's asleep. He's actually passed out. And he doesn't wake up for the entire night. So she spends the whole night trying to wake him up, trying to, like, break the curse in any way she can. She can't figure it out, and he's not awake to tell her, so she doesn't know what to do. So she goes back out of the castle the next morning, defeated, because she wasn't able to wake him up or save him from this personal predicament. So the next day, she starts playing with the wool carder, which I don't understand how you play with that. She cards some wool, guys. She gets some wool. She does some things. I don't know a lot about fiber art, so I can't tell you about it. But that's what she does. And it's a golden thing. So the ogre princess comes outside, and she's like, hey, I want to buy that. And the girl goes, oh, yeah, if it were for sale for money, then you absolutely could. And the ogre princess is like, okay, well, I think I know what your game is. But just, out of curiosity, what are you selling it for, then, if not for money? And she's like, oh, another night with that prince in your castle? Alone. Thank you. And so the ogre princess is like, yeah, sold. That's fine. Give me it. I want it. It's shiny. I need it. Which, like, same, girl. I get it. I like shiny things, too. But then same thing happens. Second verse, same as the first. The prince is asleep all night, and now our princess is getting really discouraged because she's like, I don't know how to fix this. If I do this a third time, it's just going to be repeat. We're just repeating the same actions and not getting anywhere. So what do I do? So, as she's leaving the palace on the second morning, she hears some servants in the palace over, like, they're talking, they're doing a little servanty gossip, and they're talking about how it's so funny because the ogre princess keeps bringing the prince a drink before this lady, this crazy lady who keeps selling gold objects for a night with the prince, comes in. The ogre princess brings him a special drink, and he just sleeps the entire night, and they think that's hilarious. But now our girl's like, huh, okay, I know what's up. How do I fix that? I don't know. Better go outside and play with some gold stuff. But she wasn't the only person who overheard this gossip, you guys. Because as she was leaving, the prince had woken up. And he overheard the gossip too. So he was like, oh, is that what's happening to me? Is that why I'm getting a full 8 hours of sleep and feeling very rested in the morning? Huh, okay, bet. So on the third day, same thing happens. Ogre princess is like, sell me your gold thing. It's some kind of spinning wheel, spindle, something along those lines. And the princess is like, I will, for another night with that prince, preferably awake. And the ogre's like, I don't control that, but yes, sold. So she sets it up. She goes up there, the ogre princess, and she's like, hey honey, I brought you a drink, and that lady's gonna come spend the night with you. And he's like, what lady? And she's like, oh, nothing. Here you go, drink this. And then the prince is like, yeah, totally. So he pretends to drink it, just sort of dumps it into a potted plant, I guess. I don't know what he does. And, the ogre princess is like, tra-la-la-la. He pretends to fall asleep because he's been roofied now at this point. Or he's pretending to be roofied. He has been roofied for the past 2 days. And this time, now, when our princess comes up there, he's like, hey, I'm awake. And she's like, oh my god, that's so convenient for me because I had no solution for this problem. And so the prince is like, hey, thanks for coming to find me. I really appreciate that. It really shows me that you care. And she's like, yeah, but how do we get you out of this situation? And the prince is like, oh, I have the perfect solution. Laundry. Laundry will save the day. And the princess is like, what? Laundry? Come again? How so? And he's like, well, everybody knows ogres can't do laundry because when they wash stuff, it just gets dirtier. And I have that shirt with the tallow stains in it from when you burned me. Do you remember? And she's like, oh my god, I remember. Let it go. And he's like, yeah, I have that shirt. So I'm just going to tell her I will only marry the woman who can get the stains out of my shirt. And because she's an ogre, she's never going to be able to get the stains out of my shirt. And she's like, yeah, that common knowledge that you have, we all have. I knew totally that ogres can't do laundry. I knew that. That's something everybody knows. And so the prince is like, yeah. And then when you can show up and you'll be like, I'll wash it when they fail. And you'll get the stains out of my shirt. And then, boom, we'll be done. I'll marry you. We'll be good to go. And she's like, okay, great. Awesome plan. So they spend the rest of the night smashing. You know they absolutely did. And then, in the morning, the prince makes this announcement to the ogre and his stepmother, who is also an ogre. And he's like, hey, I'm only going to marry the person who can get the stains out of my shirt. So the ogre princess is like, yeah, okay, yeah, I could do laundry. That's something humans do. I can do it too. So she takes up the shirt, starts trying to wash it, but the stains just get bigger and bigger. So then her mom's like, you're not doing it right. So her mom takes the shirt, and she starts trying to wash it too, but she's also an ogre. And as everybody knows, ogres can't do laundry. So then those stains get even bigger. And so, at this point, our princess shows up, and she's like, hey, you mind if I wash that shirt? And they're like, whatever, because nobody can wash this shirt. It's clearly enchanted. And she's like, okay, yeah, no, let me give a crack at it. And the ogre princess is like, yeah, totally, you should do it, because nobody can do it. Strange lady who has been sleeping with my fiancé for the last 3 days and only wants to sleep with my fiancé instead of exchanging her goods for currency. Nothing suspicious here. So, our princess takes up the shirt, she washes it, it goes pure white in an instant. Perfectly clean. All the tallow washed out. Perfect shirt. And the prince is like, okay, well, looks like you lose. I'm gonna marry her. And the ogre princess and the ogre stepmom get so enraged by the fact that they lost this contest that only they didn't know they couldn't win, because we all totally know that ogres can't do laundry. They get so mad, you guys, they pull a Rumpelstiltskin and they explode on the spot. They just into smithereens. And so our princess and the prince get married and presumably move back to the castle that was enchanted, that suddenly reappeared now that their happy reunion is back on and they're all together now. Yeah, they move back over there and everybody's happy and they live happily ever after, and that's the end of the story. So yeah, that's it, guys. If you have been listening to Storycraft for a while now, you might recognize that this is also the story of, in some way, it's almost the story of Psyche and Eros, or Psyche and Cupid if you prefer. And it's also very similar to the story I told called The Sprig of Rosemary, or The Rosemary Sprig. Very similar stories. They actually are all, The Rosemary Sprig and East of the Sun and West of the Moon, are based on the myth of Psyche and Eros, which puts them into the same Arns Thompson Uther tale type known as the animal bridegroom. Psyche and Eros has been the inspiration for many stories that involve a groom that is also an animal or a beast in some way, shape, or form. And this is the same tale type that Beauty and the Beast comes from. So that's sort of the origin of these things. And so all these stories are sort of interconnected by the fact that they're all inspired by the original myth of Psyche and Eros, which is really cool if you're just looking at, like, I don't know what you would call it, the history of particular folk tales and fairy tales. It's a very interesting little tidbit, and I really love it. I love that every sort of type of this story that you find in a different culture stems from this sort of root, and all has like their little bit of quirks and little bit of interesting things and different takes on this narrative, but it's all sort of, you know, coming from the same place. So it's very interesting. This story is actually very funny to me, mostly for the we all just know that ogres are bad at laundry sort of statement, but also for the fact that he's just a bear that shows up and is like, sell me your daughter, and her dad's like, totally, which is, you know, I might have some questions. Why? What for? How come you can talk? Those sort of things. But her dad didn't. He didn't have any of those questions. But I do, like, want to shout out her mom for being, like, a real one. Because, like, if you put yourself in her mother's shoes, you might be like, hey, no, none of this situation is good. I actually didn't like that your dad sold you to a bear, and I don't like that a strange man is crawling into your bed at night doing God knows what to you, and you don't know what the fuck he looks like. So yeah, I really sympathize. Sorry, I have the hiccups now. I really sympathize with her mom in this story, and like what must be going through her head as her daughter is recounting all the events, and she's like, oh, you're living like a princess, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. There's a man crawling in your bed, though? And you haven't, like, picked up a candlestick? No, we gotta fix that right now. But also, yeah, That's basically all I have about this story. That's all my thoughts and feelings. If you haven't already, check out the other stories that I mentioned. They're also very good and funny and silly and goofy in their way. Also, just want to note that all of this could have been solved with some communication on the prince's part. If he was just like, hey, I'm a man that turns into a bear, and if you live with me for a year and don't look at my face, I'll turn back into a prince all the time, and we'll be happy together forever. Because it doesn't seem like he was cursed to not be able to talk about it, because he could tell her that he was the bear when he was, like, coming to her as a man. So, I feel like he could have maybe explained in some sort of way. Like, maybe he couldn't give out all the curse details, but he could have been just like, don't look at my face for a year and good things will happen. But instead he decided to, like, gaslight her and then light her up about talking to her mom, instead of just being like, hey, if you take your mom's advice, it will curse us. That might have also been, like, a really straightforward way. Like, talk to your mom for sure, because I shouldn't get between, like, a mother and daughter situation, but, don't take her advice, because we'll be cursed. Would probably be a good little way to, like, explain that, but, you know, you can't really put a lot of logic into fairy tales. But that's going to be it for me, guys. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate your faces. And I will catch you guys all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting, guys. Bye!